What is up, New York Mets fans? Welcome back to your Mets post-game show right here on the channel. What about this team, man? What about this team and what about this win? New York Mets fans, stand up. Stand up. What an electric victory for our New York Mets at home to beat the Philadelphia Phillies 9 straight times out of the last 9 games at Citi Field. I honestly, kind of am shaking right now, with this game. This has a September or even playoff baseball feel to it. I'm kind of just, even shaking with the way that this played out. We're gonna get into the recap. We're gonna be talking about everything, including Carlos Mendoza's decision to go away from Tyler Rogers and prioritize Helsley, which backfired at the time. But before we fully get into anything, Mets fans, you know exactly what to do in the live chat. Spam those W's. It's a New York Mets win, and it's a series win, most importantly. Let's go. Let's go, baby. I absolutely love it. Look at all these W's rolling in. All the W's from you Mets fans at home. This was such a completely electric game. Shout out to PAS Sports in the house. My guy John does some great live streams. Make sure to go check him out as well. Wow. What a game at home. We have to talk about Edwin Diaz first and foremost. We have to talk about Edwin Diaz. He, along with the offense, essentially won this team the ball game with the way that it was shaping out. It was the offensive performance, especially in that fifth inning, coming back and scoring 5 consecutive runs against Jesus Luzardo and Kerkering, and Edwin Diaz holding it down when Ryan Helsley was not able to, coming in for an inning and 2/3 and setting the Mets offense up to walk off the newly acquired closer for the Phillies, Joan Duran, who's been absolutely lights out for them. And that's a testament to how just on point this offense has been. And what an electric victory to set up the third game of this series as the Mets try to go for the sweep tomorrow with rookie Nolan McLean on the mound in his biggest start of his career thus far across any single level. How are we feeling? First of all, almost 4 minutes into this stream, please do, as always, it's a great time to be a New York Mets fan tonight. Smash those thumbs up buttons for me. I definitely appreciate it. If you're new to the channel, make sure to subscribe for more post games just like this one, more conversations, talking about prospect call-ups like we did earlier today on the channel, talking about Jonah Tong. I linked that live stream in the description down below if you want to watch that to end your night, because it's a great day on all fronts. And I said it in the live stream earlier. The only thing that could make this day better, knowing that Jonah Tong will be in a Mets uniform, is getting the series victory tonight against the against the Philadelphia Phillies. And that's exactly what they did. Proud of this team. I we will talk about the decision from Carlos Mendoza, because I know a lot of people want to talk about the decision. It almost ended up costing the Mets this game, but it didn't. Because this team is now starting to show, especially offensively and with the bullpen outside of Ryan Helsley, they're starting to show resiliency. This offense is starting to show us why they are and should be top 5, considered a top 5 offense in this league, because they have the ability, no matter what the pitching does on any given day, to go out there and carry this team to victories like they did today alongside Edwin Diaz. 6-5 is your final score. I don't even know where to start. Should we even look at the box score? This is your box score for game 2, Mets versus Phillies. Sean Manaea, I think he had a pretty decent performance. And I'll start with Sean Manaea. 4 2/3 innings, 2 earned runs given up at the hands of Gregory Soto, who came in and couldn't get the job done. 90 pitches overall, 6 hits given up. He had the put away pitches going with 8 strikeouts, especially that sweeper early on, and no walks. That is the most important thing to take away from this Sean Manaea start, is that he did not walk any hitters. But he still was a little bit inefficient, and the stamina, I guess, so to speak, right, was still lacking a little bit in that 5th inning, which forced him out of the ballgame. He started to lose it a little bit. David Stearns talked about it. The booth talked about it. We've been seeing this trend from Sean Manaea kind of in that 5th inning, maybe even sometimes the 4th inning, where he starts to lose it. But all in all, if you are asking me which performance I'm going to take, yesterday with Kodai Senga or today with Sean Manaea, I'm taking this Sean Manaea start all day long. Should that be the golden standard of this Mets rotation? No. We're looking for 6+ innings. Of course, that's what Carlos Mendoza says. That's what all this fan base knows, is this rotation should be better in terms of providing length. But Sean Manaea, I will say, given what he's been producing over the past couple of weeks to even months, I'll take this start for Sean Manaea. It's a stepping stone. Hopefully, when he encounters the 5th inning in September and beyond, he's able to get through it. But he held the Phillies hitters at bay for the majority of this game in his start. So I will say a really good setup from Sean Manaea to put it in the hands of the bullpen. Clearly, the bullpen faltered a little bit with Gregory Soto and Ryan Helsley, but the rest of the bullpen, in terms of Tyler Rogers and Edwin Diaz, get the job done. They get the job done. Now, let's talk about the part of this game where I almost had a rant on today's postgame. If the Mets had lost this game, and I'm going to get this out of the way, right? Because this is an electric victory, and I don't want to complain too much, but we have to call a spade, and that was the wrong decision by Carlos Mendoza. Tyler Rogers went in there, threw 7 pitches to get 3 outs, was very efficient. He had 2 pitches, 2 outs, and then threw a couple of pitches to Real Muto. Why Mendoza has to get cute by bringing Helsley in is beyond me. That is not the spot for Ryan Helsley, and it hasn't been the spot for him ever since he was acquired from the St. Louis Cardinals. In his first 11 outings as a New York Met, he's given up 10 runs. That is not a success rate that warrants that type of outing, right? In this position at that time. I tweeted it out on my X account. You can go and fact check me. If you don't follow me at True Mets Talk CP. You can follow me on all my social medias. I said, if I was Mendoza, I would go back to Tyler Rogers, given how he looked. And he went with Helsley. Helsley pitched a decent game yesterday, a decent outing. And I guess Mendoza wanted to build on that as a stepping stone to give him more confidence. And I applaud that. But you do not do this in this type of divisional game at this point of the season. So if I'm going to sit here and complain about one thing, I didn't even complain about Sean Manaea's start too much, even though he went 4 2/3 inning. But I'm going to complain about that decision from Carlos Mendoza, because if that situation arises again, I hope Mendoza makes the right decision that time and goes with Tyler Rogers, who only, again, threw 7 pitches in the 7th inning. Ryan Helsley, until further notice, is not to be entrusted in that situation. 28 pitches for a third of an inning pitched, 2 walks, and an absolute bomb that he gave up to former Met Harrison Bader. He's falling off the mound. Yeah, he throws 100, 101. That's fine. Major leaguers can hit that, especially if they know it's coming. Because more often than not, his slider is not going to be in the zone. So they're laying off of it, setting up that fastball, and all they have to do is make contact, and it's going to be going a long way given the velocity. So that's really the only gripe that I have with this game from the New York Mets. Brazoban, I can talk about Brazoban as well. He has a couple of options left on his contract. Do I expect Brazoban to be here for the long haul of September? Maybe not, especially with some of the pitchers that the Mets have decisions to make in the minor leagues on, right? With McGill and Brandon Sproat. Maybe they decide to utilize one of those two options and sending Brazaban back down because he does that's the good thing about Brazaban pitching to a 3.81 ERA so far this season. He's been better than advertised. Yeah, he's had his slip ups. Yes, he's been erratic with his control, and we all knew that about Brazaban coming into this season. But I do think overall, even with his performance today aside, giving up an earned run, to make it a 5-3 ball game at that point, he's still been better than advertised, right? And that's the most important thing. So I do not fault Carlos Mendoza for going with him in that sixth inning to try to get some length for the rest of the bullpen. But that Helsley decision should not be made once more, because in another scenario, if the Mets lose this game, that's all we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about Carlos Mendoza. You know, a lot of fans will go as far as to say that he doesn't have a feel for the bullpen management, but it ended up working out okay. 12 hits in this ball game for the New York Mets. I know they had a ridiculous performance yesterday with runners in scoring position, right? They were over 10 hits with runners in scoring position yesterday in the 13-3 victory. Today, they go 5 for 10 with runners in scoring position. That's a 500 clip, and you'll take that all day, every day, especially with how this offense looked earlier this season with runners in scoring position. All day, every day. This offense is finally hitting its stride at the right time and really carrying this team. So once again, I appreciate you all being here. Make sure to smash the thumbs up buttons, subscribe to the channel as well for more of these just lively post-game streams, because this team, there's something brewing with this team. They're starting to figure it out. If the pitching can get it together even to the slightest degree, hopefully Jonah Tong gives them a burst of energy just like Nolan McLean has. There's something special brewing in Queens down the stretch of this season. I'm telling you. So keep dropping those live chat comments. I'm reading them. I will go back to them. I'm going to get into the comments here in just a second, but keep dropping those live chat comments. I don't have a live chat poll for you all tonight. I apologize. A little bit rushed into making these slides, but what an electric victory. I'm so here for it. I'm so here for it. Isn't it just better? Aren't the vibes just better when we are coming up on the winning side of a close ball game? And by the way, that's something to also say for this game. I talked about it before. As of the past couple of weeks, when the Mets win, they win big. They put up 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 runs. But when it's a close ball game, especially in that game 3 in Atlanta, when the offense is taking a day off, so to speak, they weren't winning those ball games. And tonight, the script was reversed. And that is what I like to see. You need to continue to win close ball games, especially as you head into September. And Dolo's saying it right here. This offense put together some of the best at-bats that I have seen from a guy that is lights out, considered to be lights out, and is having a really good season, an all-star season, and is considered to be a top 3 closer in all of baseball alongside Edwin Diaz. 4 hits, I believe it was, in that last inning for the Mets offense against Yohan Duran. Really good stuff. Really good stuff. Really good stuff. Philly has lost 23 of the last 29 games at Citi Field, including 9 in a row. That is a that is a mesmerizing stat, Caps. I didn't even know that that was the case right here. That is a mesmerizing stat. Salute to George. I appreciate it. The Mets are showing a little heart. Absolutely. The mic is the new grimace. Is that the new thing for the Mets? I mean, it could be. It could absolutely be. They're not going to DFA Ryan Helsley, but Ryan Helsley he has cemented himself out of the circle of trust. Absolutely, 100%. PAS in the house. Anyone that came over from my live stream, make sure to like and subscribe to CEP. Salute to you. Hats off to you. I definitely appreciate it. Thank you so much. And vice versa. If you don't subscribe to John over at Pure Adrenaline Sports, great in-game Mets live streams. Go check him out. Absolutely. Nick's in the house. LFG. LFGM. Jody's in the house as well. LFGM. How are we feeling? How are we feeling? I love it. I love it. Just really competent at bats. Really competent at bats. I mean, to go down in a ball game against the Phillies 2 nights in a row. Yesterday it was 3-0. Today it was 2-0. Just absolutely shows the resiliency of this offense. Absolutely shows the resiliency of this offense. And let's get into the box score for the offense as well. Because we talked about Sean Manaea a little bit. And again, I'll say this one more time about Sean Manaea. This is a type of start that you can build off of, right? I know the length isn't there, and that's what the Mets are trying to work with him on. I understand that. We're still hoping for 5+, maybe even 6+ innings. If, and I say if, with the current situation that the Mets are faced in the rotation, if they don't move him to the bullpen, because I still think that could be maybe on the table, but this is an outing where maybe in some outings prior, Sean Manaea didn't have his put away stuff, but today he did. The efficiency clearly wasn't there. I already stated that, but 8 strikeouts against a very competent Philadelphia Phillies lineup. He looked good in that aspect, and that's something that you build off of. But look at this box score. Today was more of the top of the lineup getting things done. Pete Alonso, 4 for 5, a 4-hit game, and a huge 2 RBI double to at that point put the Mets up 3-2 in that inning. It was the 5th inning, and the Phillies scored their 2 runs. In the top of the 5th, the Mets countered back with 5 runs of their own. And Pete Alonso had a lot to do with this Mets victory from the offensive side. Mark Vientos continues to swing a hot bat. I believe that is now a 9-game hit streak for Mark Vientos with an RBI base hit to the opposite field. Just good at bats all around. I'm starting to feel like Tyrone Taylor is also getting it done from the offensive perspective. We haven't seen Cedric Mullins in a couple of games, and Tyrone Taylor. Let's not forget that Tyrone Taylor down the stretch of last season, going into the postseason, really caught fire in September. That's something that I really want to point out. Let me look at Tyrone Taylor's stats real quick, the splits on his season last season, because if I'm not mistaken, towards the end of August or early September, that's when he really started to turn it around and was one of the best Mets hitters in that month. If my memory serves me correct. So let's see. 2024 splits. In September/October, he hit 283 with a 790 OPS. So yeah, that was by far his best month of the season outside of April and March to begin the season. And he really turned it on as of late. So if we're talking about a rejuvenated Mets offense from top to bottom, a guy that a lot of Mets fans in this fan base have been complaining about, especially offensively. No one's ever going to complain about his defense, but offensively contributing something towards the bottom of the lineup. Tyrone Taylor is the right player to have on both sides of the ball when he's producing. And I know none of his offensive production is going to wow you, right? He's not going to give you many RBIs. He's not going to put many balls in the gaps, even though I think he had a double today in this game, going 1 for 2. But if he's getting on base at a high clip, drawing walks, he had a walk again today, getting on base multiple times. That is a stolen base threat, a stolen base candidate, as is Cedric Mullins. But I do think that Tyrone Taylor is more of a threat in terms of strict OBP and the eye at the plate. So if you're asking me, if Tyrone Taylor is swinging this type of bat, I wouldn't even consider trying to work Cedric Mullins back into the rotation unless it's a spot start here and there, because that is something where you benefit on all fronts with Tyrone Taylor in the lineup right now. And it's taken him a little bit this season to really kind of start to show us, okay, I definitely deserve to be an everyday starter in center field. So kudos to him. Absolutely. Shout out to Tyrone Taylor. McNeil and Terrence take the offers, at the bottom of the lineup. And like I said, the top of the lineup today were the ones that were getting the job done. Really nice to see Francisco Lindor also bounce back. He took the 0 for 6 with 3 strikeouts, I believe it was yesterday. 2 for 4 today, run scored. Also gets hit by a pitch on his arm. And what is up with the Phillies pitchers hitting the New York Mets? I'm sure it's not intentional. It didn't look intentional, but I think it was 3 hit by pitches in this game. It's ridiculous. It's getting a little bit ridiculous. And Jesus Luzardo, I mean, he was pumping gas to begin this game from the left side of the mound, 100 plus miles per hour. I knew that he threw decently hard, but I didn't think he had 100 in his back pocket. And he was getting frustrated. He was heated on that mound. And it started with that Juan Soto at bat early when Soto called time and the umpire granted it to Juan Soto. Jesus Luzardo did not like that whatsoever. And he ended up getting ejected later on when the Phillies finally decided to pull him. It was a rookie home plate umpire, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Doesn't really have much service time as an umpire. Still getting, I guess, the workaround of the major leagues. And I think Luzardo said something to him like, be better. This is the major leagues now. So I think both teams knew that this umpire was relatively new to what he's doing right now. And Jesus Luzardo was just not having it. I don't think the home plate umpire had his best game. I think there's a lot of missed calls on both sides of the plate. But, the Phillies were definitely frustrated with that home plate umpire, and it did not help their cause whatsoever. I do apologize. I do have the records not updated here. The Mets are now 71-61, officially 10 games back over 500, which is awesome. And the Phillies, I should say, are 4-56. Mets are 10 games over 500, and the Phillies drop a game in the NL East to the New York Mets. Now it is 5 games back of the NL East. It's awesome. It's awesome stuff. Let me get back into the comments here. I definitely appreciate it. Again, I was a little bit rushed, making these slides, so bear with me for any typos that I have on the screen here next to me. CP, they should have crushed Luzardo in the first lost opportunity, 100%. That's another thing that, we talk about the offense in this game and how good they were in the 5th inning and beyond, really in the 5th and the 9th inning. But that first inning, you have Jesus Luzardo on the ropes. You have him on the ropes. I think he threw about 26, 27 pitches. The Mets had the bases loaded and they couldn't do anything with it. That's an inning where, in the future, I'd like to see the Mets come through first, early and often. But as we know historically, and this is something that the Mets were doing even last season, I don't know why, but part of this team just enjoys playing from behind. I have no idea why. Maybe it makes them kick it into gear a little bit more. I don't like that style, but if it works, it works. And if you're producing wins, no one's going to really complain. No one's going to really complain. Uncuffed Sports is saying my concern with Sean is his fastball velocity doesn't throw consistent 96 plus. Could it be a strength and conditioning issue with coaches? I mean, it could be that, but it also could be that he's still dealing with stuff with his arm. And that's something that we know that Sean Manaea is dealing with. He has the loose bodies in his elbow. I'm not sure how that's actually impacting him, if it's impacting him at all. But I have noticed also, and we talked about this with Zach yesterday, that there was and there has been a lack of velocity from Sean Manaea, and that's something to definitely keep an eye out on. And maybe that's a trait where the Mets look at that and say, okay, maybe the bullpen is the better bet for you to end the season. I don't know. So that's a great point by you. That's a great point by you. Let's get back into some of the comments here. I definitely appreciate it. Let me look at actually ESPN real quick, and just take a look at some of the other stuff that was going on. Let's toss up this screen here, this slide, to take a look at the updated wild card standings right beside me. As of today, when the Mets entered this game with the Phillies, this was your updated wild card standings. Clearly, at this point, I think San Diego is beating the Mariners. Ramon Laureano hit a grand slam, so they're on their way to a victory, if I'm not mistaken. But the Cubs also, let me check the scores here. The Cubs are tied 1-1 in the bottom of the fourth with the Giants. They're +6. And then the Reds are tied 1-1 in the bottom of the third with the Dodgers for that game right here for the wild card implication. So those are your updated standings going into tonight. And clearly that will change just a tad bit when those other scores go final. But let's take a look at this box score. I'll toss this screen up here real quick for you all one more time so you know what the box score is like. I'm just checking ESPN right now. I mean, 12 hits. It just seems like so often recently the Mets have been just accumulating 10, 11, 12. Yesterday, last night, it was 14 hits for the New York Mets. And they're just putting really good swings on the baseball. Very aggressive at bats, which is what I like to see. And you know what? One of the things I noticed today in the ninth inning, especially, besides, Marte leading the inning off, and Marte's just been swinging a super ridiculous bat. I mean, he is at this point one of the Mets' hottest hitters in a lineup that is full of hot hitters right now. Lindor, Soto starting to come around a little bit. He produced an RBI today in a crucial situation. Marte, Alonso with the 4-hit game. Vientos is going off. I'd like to see a little bit more from Nimmo, but clearly, I mean, what a great approach. Bases loaded, no out, taking it the opposite field against a very talented Joan Duran for the walk-off win. I mean, but the one thing that I wanted to state in that ninth inning was Brett Baty coming into the game as a defensive replacement for Mark Vientos, as Carlos Mendoza usually does. That was before Helsley gave up the lead. And Baty's in there, first at bat. It's very tough. It's very tough as a major league hitter to come in cold into a situation like that. The booth was wondering if he was going to bunt, and he didn't. And he was aggressive. That's the one thing that I want you all to realize is that Baty was aggressive. He was aggressive enough to work the count, get to 3-1, and then still swing. In another scenario, if you see Joan Duran struggling and you get to 3-1, you would think that Brett Baty, first step out of the game, coming off the bench, oh, he's taking the pitch. No, he's swinging the bat and trying to do damage. That was a walk-off swing on 3-1 from Brett Baty in that at-bat in the ninth inning. He ends up getting the blue pit to set up bases loaded for Brandon Nimmo, who gets the job done. But that's the type of aggressiveness that I'm talking about with this team as of recent. And that's something that I absolutely love. Good things happen when you hunt for your pitch and you get it and you put an aggressive swing on the baseball. So that's what I'll say about that. And that's something that maybe goes a little bit unnoticed, right? When you're watching the game, but then you look back and you're like, okay, that was a really good approach from a good hitter so far this season. And this is something that's not new, Dolo. In hindsight, you want Mark Vientos' bat still in the lineup. And so that's why it seems like a crazy decision. But at that point, I think Mendoza's really thinking that the Mets bullpen is going to shut the game down and lock it down, and he'll take the better defense at that point. So this is something that he's been continuously doing down the stretch of this season so far. Yep. Yep. The bad batted ball in play metrics have been reversed. And they've been reversed greatly recently, as you are saying here. And Stearns brought that up in his press conference, I'm sure, today. I didn't hear it, but that is certainly the case. I'm sure they're always looking at those advanced metrics, as this new analytics department usually does. Sometimes maybe a little bit too much, but, they're always looking at that. I'm sure Stearns is as well, because has a very analytical mind. CP, is the division still at reach? It's 5 games. It's 5 games. The Mets schedule is tough. I will say that. So if they continue games like tonight and yesterday, yes, the division is in reach, but they have an uphill battle to climb, even being 5 games back with about 30 left to play. So I think the division is in reach. Am I going to be overly upset if they don't win the division? Not really. I just want to get in. But I would say at this point, assessing the situation of the National League, it would be a really good idea for the Mets to go and get that division. It'd be a really good idea because you're sitting right now in a situation where you're staring up at the Padres, who are playing really good baseball right now as of recent, and the Mets historically struggle against them. I'm not even talking about that 2022 wild card series, right? At home, but I'm just talking about in general. The pitchers on that staff, you Darvish, whoever else is currently headlining that rotation, something about them is just like a pesky team for the Mets to play against historically. So what's up, James? How you doing? I really would not like to see the Padres in the playoffs. If I'm being very honest, I'd like to avoid that. But at this point, it's just get in any way you can, whether it's the division, whether it's the wild card, I don't care. But as it pertains to your question, a really roundabout way to answer it, I don't think the division is out of reach. I know Phillies fans right now are sweating. I know they are sweating. They thought that they were, winners of 8 of their last 10. The Mets have been struggling, and they were going to come into Citi Field and reverse the trend and finally take a series at Citi Field when they need it the most. Sorry, I have absolute hat hair right now, which is why I keep adjusting my cap. But I know, and I'm going to go as soon as I'm done with this stream, which will be relatively soon. I'm going to go and just take a look and a listen at the NBC Sports Philly broadcast and what their post game says. I'm going to go and listen to all the Phillies fans either being quiet, that would usually flood these streams, right, and troll these streams. And I'm going to take a listen as to what they are thinking right now. Because 5 games is still a very healthy lead, and I'll be very upfront about that. But we're starting to see a very locked in Mets team, ladies and gentlemen. We're starting to see a very locked in team. And that's the most important thing. I'm not so concerned about what the Phillies are doing or what they're going to do after this series. I'm concerned about what the Mets are doing right now. I'm concerned about what the Mets are doing right now. Now it's time to rake through October. Absolutely, Nick. Absolutely. Absolutely. Ebbs and flows. I mean, I love the term, but sometimes it frustrates me to no end when Mets fans say ebbs and flows. But really, when you take a look at this season so far at its core, it really has been ebbs and flows for the New York Mets. And the flows, it's time right now to keep it flowing. I think that's how the saying goes, right? I think flowing is good. So I think the Mets need to keep flowing, so to speak. But that's a great point. It's important, and sometimes us here talking about this team on your screen, we get a little bit caught up with the trends that we see from this team, but we're also trying to be as objective as possible and point out the trends, right? That's what we're here to do. That's why we talk about this team for you all to watch. And sometimes we get very carried away. I have fallen to that countless of times. But I think that a game of or a season of 162 is very important to realize what Nick was just saying in the chat. Brazo and Helsley cannot be trusted anymore. I mean, really though, I hear what you're saying with Brazoban. Let me see here. But like, his control's erratic. That's where you can't trust him. He's given up 2 earned runs in his past 3 outings. But, I take a look at since July 6th, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 outings for Brazoban. And he's given up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 runs. Okay, I guess that's not great. Brazoban is a guy that you really know what you're going to get from him in the first batter or two. Like, he either has it or he doesn't. And that's why he's so electric sometimes, and that's why he's so bad sometimes. There's like almost no middle ground in between. And that's what I'll say. That's what I'll say about Braziban. But I think the bigger issue, because Braziban's not supposed to be pitching in high leverage situations, I think the bigger issue objectively is Ryan Helsley. He needs to get it together. And at this point, if the Mets are going to continue to take chances on him in big situations, that means they're trying to get him right. But if they don't, like, how are you really going to get him back to a spot where he can go and pitch the eighth inning and be a setup guy? That's my main concern. How are you going to accomplish that? How are you going to be, how are you going to accomplish that and play both sides? So, ooh, what a stream. What a game. Can we spam some W's again? Is that possible? In order and in honor of this series victory for the New York Mets over the Phillies at home, spam those W's in the live chat. Let's go, baby. Let's go. Love it. I absolutely love it. W's in the chat from Nate, Jody, Ray. I love it. I love it. James saying Mets are more dangerous in second place than the division lead. They usually go on losing streaks when they have a 4 to 5 game lead. Shout out to Darren as well in the chat. I definitely appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, let's not forget at one point this season, the Mets did have a division lead by like 5 games, somewhere around there. So, I mean, you'd always love to have the division lead and not play up from behind, right? But sometimes it's either in your control, out of your control. I think the main point here is for the rest of the way is that the Mets control their own destiny. It's not like other teams have been beating the New York Mets as of recent in this skid. Let's be honest about that. The Mets have been beating the New York Mets. The Mets have been beating the New York Mets. And if the Mets stop beating themselves, there's going to be a lot more wins within these next 30 or so games that we will see. But it's about them getting back to the fundamentals, especially defensively, because they had a couple of defensive lapses over the past couple of weeks. Getting back to the fundamentals, keep on being aggressive with the at-bats from the offense, and hopefully with the additions now of McLean, Tong, and maybe Sproat, get the pitching back on track to complement and really have a completely flowing team on all 3 fronts of the game: bullpen, offense, and starting pitching. And maybe even 4, talking about the decision making of Carlos Mendoza. I think that's the 4th aspect of this team, because once more, we talked about it before. I don't want to harp on it too much, but that decision to take out Rogers for Helsley almost backfired. So let's make the correct decision the next time around. And listen, I mean, this is what Carlos Mendoza gets paid to do. David Stearns also said in his post game, or not his post game, but his press conference today, that Mendoza is going to be back. If anyone's wondering if Mendoza's job is on the line, depending on what happens this season, no, it's not. And that shouldn't be a shock to anyone in this fan base. Mendoza is a great manager. Yes, he's had a couple of poor decisions, this season with the bullpen, especially, as all managers do. But he's going to be back. And I think this team is really rallying around him right now. And it just seems like he is a calm presence when things aren't going well, or they didn't go well for the New York Mets in this past just losing skid, right? Which is important. It seems like he's always keeping his cool, calm collectiveness, which I know a lot of Mets fans won't appreciate, but I appreciate. In any case, I appreciate that from Carlos Mendoza. So smash those thumbs up buttons, subscribe to the channel for more Mets content the rest of the way. I mean, I don't really have much else to say on this stream right now. I know that it's just go for the sweep tomorrow. Noel McLean is going on the mound in his 3rd big league start, biggest start of his career against former Met Taijuan Walker. It's another night game. No matinee games in this series with how big it is. It's just go out there, do something that you couldn't do against the Braves in Atlanta. Do it at home. Complete the sweep. Complete the sweep against a divisional opponent that you are not looking down on, but you are looking up at. That's what we need. So, Noel McLean, this is a big opportunity for him. He handled another divisional rival well with the Braves. He's got another opportunity to do so tomorrow. Now, again, we're not expecting 7 innings plus from Nolan McLean again. At least I'm not. Keep your team in the ballgame, which he's been doing over his first 2 starts. Have the put away pitches like he's had over his first 2 starts. Keep these Phillies hitters at bay. Bryce Harper, right? The Mets have been keeping the Phillies offense in the ballpark, minus the Harrison Bader home run today. That is important, especially when you're talking about Bryce Harper, who had a really good bounce back game today, especially at the plate, but also Kyle Schwarber. So that is one important aspect of keeping this Phillies lineup because historically, last season, this season, they get a lot of runs from the long ball. That's how that offense has been built. So when they're not hitting home runs, I don't think they're the best contact team. They will chase if you have an effective off-speed pitch, and they will swing through an electric fastball, as we saw with Edwin Diaz on the mound, to keep them off balance. So that is the name of the game for Nolan McLean tomorrow, who's got a plethora of pitches to throw against this lineup. So appreciate everyone in the live chat. That's going to do it for me on this post game. I definitely appreciate the support. I appreciate everyone spamming the W's in the live chat. It is an electric series victory for the New York Mets. But as I stated today, yesterday was yesterday. And once we get to tomorrow, yesterday will still be yesterday. The Mets have to take it one day at a time. That is, and any team, this isn't just go for the New York Mets, but any team, but especially for the Mets trying to claw their way back into this division, take it one game at a time. The electricity of the walk-off win, yes, we'll celebrate right now, but tomorrow is a brand new day, and we will focus on that day as such when it gets here. So with that, as always, appreciate you all here being a part of this stream, whether you're just watching or also being interactive and commenting. I definitely appreciate nonetheless. Smash those thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you all tomorrow for another pregame / postgame stream. I actually don't think I'm available for the pregame, but definitely the postgame stream here on the channel. Let's go Mets. Enjoy this walk-off victory. See you all tomorrow. Peace.